The Major League Baseball Players Association has a new union boss, and the first order of business to call out Phil Castellini.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Reds podcast. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network, and we're glad that you're alongside us here today. Hi, my name's Jeff. His name's Steve, and we are lifelong Cincinnati Reds fans that have been podcasting about this team for a combined 16 seasons, and we're glad that you're alongside us here today. On today's show, in a little bit, we are going to get in on the Beday Watch. I'm talking about Bleday and Benson, or Benson and Bleday. You mentioned Bleday. Anyway, who is winning this battle right now? Just 5 games in. We've seen some action. We'll give you our take coming up a little bit later on. In just a few minutes, there were a couple of things that were concerning about the Reds' win over the San Diego Padres in Cactus League action on Thursday afternoon. We're going to tell you what you really should be concerned about. That's in a few minutes. But we will begin with the fact that the Reds have been called out by new union boss Bruce Meyer for the MLB Players Association. This comes on the heels, or it was a little bit before, actually, the reported projected salary cap and salary floor. So this all feels very interconnected, because as we look forward to the offseason, which honestly, we're not looking forward to it, but like as you look into the future and you think about the looming fight that will be happening about the CBA, a salary cap is taking center stage. And there's a lot of folks that are thinking, whether or not I like the idea of a salary cap in baseball, it seems like it might benefit the Cincinnati Reds. Well, Bruce Meyer was asked about that, and he said, nah, baba, nah. Okay, maybe not direct quote, but direct quote from Bruce Meyer. This is in the paraphrasing there a little bit. Direct quote from Bruce Meyer in the Cincinnati Enquirer, an article written by Gordon Whitmire. He said, quote, "We have access to information we're not at liberty to share with the media. But this club made the playoffs last year. They beat out the Mets, who obviously have a much bigger payroll. They have the ability to compete now, and they have the ability to do more." Steve, do more? I thought they were doing more.
This only confirms what we have thought all along. I have not believed for a minute that this team was operating as a nonprofit. And it sounds to me like the union may have gotten themselves on some internal documents. And so they can't release the information they got. But what they know is what we think, which is that the Phil and the Bob show have not been spending all of the money. There is more to spend on players. And when you take into account what we're hearing being floated as a potential floor and ceiling in a salary cap under the owner's new structure, the Reds already meet the floor. There's a lot of money still on the table that could be spent on player personnel. And I'm telling you, Jeff, there is a nasty knockdown drag out coming in 2027 that is going to take a long, long time to resolve, because I can already see both the players and the owners getting ready to scrap.
Well, and as much as Bruce Meyer is positioning the players here and how they're going to set up their arguments and all this other stuff, I think that the biggest fight will be between teams like the Reds and teams like the Dodgers, because, as you mentioned, salary floor and all this other stuff, we as fans of teams that don't spend money a whole lot are just cheering for a salary floor. According to John Heyman, early projections for a salary floor is somewhere between $140 and $160 million for a given season. Right now, at least according to Spot Track, the Reds are at $146 million, $689,000 and change. So they are on the bottom part of this floor. If for some reason it's higher than that, then they would have to spend more just to get above that salary floor. So there's an element of this that the Reds, they told us that they were stretching to go get a Eugenio Suarez, but as the numbers seem to report, that's stretching. seems to have been to get above what could be a salary floor in the future. And then when you look at the supposed salary cap, where they have that currently somewhere between $260 and $280 million, that could bring down the top spenders a little bit to the Reds, but that's still a $120 million gap at the smallest, anywhere from $120 to $140 million gap. So you're still talking about a huge gap there, like doubling the payroll of what the Reds could have. But it takes me back to this quote that he says, we have access to information we're not at liberty to share with the media. Steve, I don't think that information is that they found out that there's more shredded chicken that they could put on the fry boxes. I think that this follows up with, all right, you want to worry about salary caps and salary floors. This team right here, they don't need that, because they could be stretching for more. They could be going out and getting more, whether that is Kyle Schwarber, whether that's Pete Alonso, whether that's Eugenio Suarez, whether that's all three of them. Sounds like if you're asking Bruce Meyer, he says all of the above.
Yeah, and rightfully so. I'm really interested in how this plays out. And I wonder, Jeff, just out loud, I'm going to speculate, pure just speculation, folks. Right. I'm going to speculate that the Reds knew this was going to come out. The Reds know the union has something on them. Do you think that fed into the Eugenio Suarez decision, and to go out there and get a bopper and spend a little bit of money? And look, we are trying hard. We want to win right now, by golly.
As much as we were like surmising, like, oh, is it, Phil got booed at Xavier? Is this like a response to that? This feels more likely, that this bit right here. And Bruce Meyer went on to say more about this. He said, bear with me on the double negatives here, but this is a direct quote. There is no team in baseball that doesn't have the ability to compete, Meyer said. The Milwaukee Brewers are literally the smallest market in baseball. They had the best record in baseball last year. There are plenty of resources in the current system, and we have proposals that we're going to make that we think are going to make that even better. Now, that goes back to the whole fight between the players and the owners. And while there still will be plenty more to discuss with all of that, thinking about a salary cap, a salary floor, or whatever it is that the players union comes through with here, it almost makes me wonder if through this entire process, we are going to learn more about the business side of the Cincinnati Reds. And that's where baseball gets so murky for me, because we love this game. We love these players. We love the memories that we have made with this team, as few and far between as they might be, but the different fun things that we've seen in our lifetime as fans with this ball club. And then when they start telling us about the dollars and the cents, there's nothing that makes less sense than that. And so we're going to find out some of the nitty gritty, I think, over the next 12 months, and it's not going to be pretty.
I know folks get tired of the economics of baseball being a show topic, but sometimes there's just things we can't not talk about. And the new union boss calling out the Reds ownership and doing 100%. It just correctly, we have to talk about that. And I know nobody likes to see how the sausage gets made. And that's what this compares to when we're talking about the economics of baseball. But this is important because you can guarantee it's not just the Reds they have their sights on. It's not just Cincinnati that meets those criteria, that have had success and there's more to spend and they're not spending it and they have within their reach to be better. There's other teams out there that have that same bill. It's a lot more that's a problem, I think. Are the Dodgers a problem in what they did? Well, they operated within the rules. They have figured out how to hack the economics. Are the Mets a problem? Well, they're not breaking any rules. They have a guy that's a billionaire that's willing to spend his money. So that's not really a problem. The problem is really, truly these teams that are operating like the Reds are operating the books, which is, we're a nonprofit. We're not making any money. Somebody's making money. I'm tired of hearing that nobody's making money. Somebody's making money or they wouldn't continue to hold on to this team. That's the reason why the Castellinis don't want to sell, because they're getting paid. It's very easy to draw that conclusion. And this is just another piece of information that leads you down that road and to that conclusion. And they have got to hate it, and they've got to hate it being public.
There is definitely going to be more discussion where this is concerned as we go throughout the season. But let's change our focus back to spring training for just a little bit, because there was a lot on Thursday afternoon in the game where the Reds beat the Padres in a Cactus League game where the wins and losses don't count. There were some things that happened that should maybe perk up our antenna a little bit. And there was something that also happened that shouldn't. And quite frankly, I think that that's Graham Ashcraft, and I think that that's okay. But the base running, man, we got to talk about the base running.
MLB opening day is almost here, and you can feel it. Fresh starts, big expectations, and that first crack of the bat. Whether it's a breakout rookie or a division race that goes down to the wire, there's nothing like being in the ballpark for it. The only problem, getting tickets can feel like a grind. Long queues, surprise fees, prices jumping way up at checkout. That's where Game Time comes in. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage with constant innovation. That's how you can unlock amazing tickets and experiences in just a few taps. I use Game Time all the time. Jeff uses Game Time all the time. I just used it to buy some hockey tickets for this weekend in Seattle to watch my Kraken probably lose. You can get tickets for everything, all of the major sports, concerts, comedy, whatever you're looking for. Game Time has it. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets or any other tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create your account and redeem the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today.
Thank you for making Locked On Red part of your day. And thank you for bearing with us as we go through and try to figure out whose turn it is.
Spring. We're still working it out. We're working on pitches. We're working on transitions. We're working on stuff here just like they're working on stuff in Goodyear, folks.
Exactly. And there's plenty that they're working on that came through in Thursday afternoon's game. Whether or not we should be concerned about it, we'll discuss that here. Of course, remember, you can always get the podcast ad-free, the Locked On Reds Everydayer Club. Go to lockedonreds.supercast.com to learn more about that. Link is down in the description of today's episode. And if you use the promo code SPRING now through the next couple days, literally the end of February is when this promo code disappears. Use the promo code SPRING, get yourself a free month of the Everydayer Club. And speaking of bearing with, thank you for everyone that is checking out the show and bearing with my voice. I'm really hoping that eventually this is going to be gone, hopefully by the end of this week, and I'll be back to normal next week.
This is the new Jeff. What if this is what we got to listen to the entire season?
I should just lean into it and become really crazy with my voice. No, I won't do that, I promise. But it's in my brain that I'm thinking about. Anyway, no, I'm going to get better. I am. I'm right there. I'm a positive sick person. So every day is the last day that I'm sick, and today is the last day that I'm sick. Anyway, Reds played a game on Thursday afternoon against San Diego out there in Goodyear. They won. Yay. And it was an interesting game in which there was a lot of good things at the plate. Elly De La Cruz continuing to smash baseballs. He had a couple of extra base hits. That was a fun stat. Is that Elly De La Cruz now has, I think, 5 hits this season or this spring training, 5 or 6 hits this spring training. All of them are extra base hits. So that's kind of a fun thing to see. And so much hard contact.
He has an OPS plus of 2.
200. Yeah.
2,000. If you're
2,000.
2,000.
They're running out of space to put the number for his OPS plus. But yeah, it's funky to talk about spring training statistics, obviously, but things have looked good, and the lineup really went on Thursday afternoon. There was something that was interesting though, and Cowboy made a point of talking about this, and he has a great point when it comes to this. The Reds got thrown out a couple of different times with some toot blands thrown out on the base paths looking like an nincompoop, and Elly De La Cruz was one of them. And I would say normally, look, guys, it's early spring. These guys are working out the kinks. But Steve, is this like deja vu? I feel like we talk about this too much.
And I know you're gonna set up why this mattered in the context of the game. I'll tell you right now, I really don't care what Will Banfield's doing on the bases because he's not going to be around. He's going to be in Louisville or he's going to be playing for somebody else. Not going to be in Cincinnati. So if he wants to be a nincompoop, whatever, it's Goodyear. I don't particularly care. I do care that it was Elly because he is this team's leader on the base pass. He is the guy that we're going to be counting on to be disruptive and draw pitchers' attention and do things. And he can't he can't get caught in no man's land between second and third base. That just can't happen. I don't care if it's an exhibition, if it's Goodyear, if it's regular season. I don't care. It shouldn't happen with Elly De La Cruz.
Right. And for context, in the bottom of the fifth inning, the Reds were going, the lineup was humming, and they scored a bunch of runs. But part of that rally was Elly De La Cruz hit it was either a bases clearing double or a 2 RBI double. I forget what it was, but it was a double that he got thrown out in between second and third because as he tried to advance to third on a throw that he assumed was going all the way to home plate, that throw got cut off in the middle by the first baseman, and they threw it and caught him in a rundown and tagged him before he put his foot on second base. That feels like something that I said last September. That feels like something that I said last May. That feels like something that I said in August of 2024. That feels like something that I said in May of 2024. I feel like I've said that a lot. And that's where I come back to this, is that, yes, we can make excuses for certain things of early spring training, as we will with Graham Ashcraft in just a moment. But with this thing in particular, it is a problem that needs to go away. And as much as we want the Reds to be aggressive on the base paths, this is what Tito is worried about. And Cowboy made an excellent point in the moment whenever Elly was thrown out, because it was like a couple runs across the plate. You hear the crowd cheering in the background, and Cowboy's just like, I don't like that. I don't like that. And he said, I know it's a spring training game, and I know that the results of this game doesn't matter, but if they make these mistakes now, they're going to make these mistakes later. And when they make these mistakes against the Dodgers and against the Yankees and against the Brewers, they lose. And those are the teams that they want to compare themselves to. They don't want to compare themselves to the Pirates, and they don't want to compare themselves to the Nationals and the Marlins and the Rockies. They want to be the best. And if you're going to beat the best, you cannot make dumb decisions like this and hand outs to the other ball club.
I agree, and I think Cowboy absolutely nailed it. And I know there's one more thing you want to get to that we're not worried about with these stats in this game in spring training. I want to drop in just quickly two things that I do care about from the results of this game. The first thing is, you mentioned it, you touched upon it, and that's the way that Elly's seeing the ball right now in the batter's box. He's barreling the ball. He's hitting it hard. He was 2 for 3 in this game with a couple RBIs. Batting average on the spring, small sample size, 556. And again, his OPS is 2.000, folks. Like, that's pretty good. I love that. Here's the other thing that jumped out at me in this game, because it just feels good. As much as we loved seeing TJ Antone back on the mound doing things the other day, how about Tyler Callahan? 2 for 2, 2 runs scored, an RBI on a solo home run. I love it. I could not be happier for Tyler Callahan, and I hope he finds his way to being able to get some big league time at some point in time this season. Love to see that for him here early in spring.
I would expect we'd see him at some point. It feels like we cycle through a lot of guys on the bench throughout the season and things like that.
You know,
so
a doubleheader, an extra man,
right.
Something, right?
Well, we'll see him at some point, and then maybe, who knows, maybe he grabs a hold of some playing time and doesn't let go for a little bit, because you're right. Like, I mean, there's no dude there's a couple of dudes that you could probably earmark that you're rooting for more, but very few that you're rooting for more than Tyler Callahan. But no, the thing that I'm not worried about, and people do this a lot in spring training, where they try to really dig in on the results of a game, and they say, okay, so it's not a big deal that the Reds lost, but the reason, and the Reds even win, so obviously you can't even really go that crazy. But the reason why the Reds didn't win by more is because Graham Ashcraft came in and gave up 1 billion runs only got 1 out. So how worried should we be about him? And my answer, Steve, is still, I'm not.
Nah, they took him out behind the woodshed yesterday.
They did. It was a bad day.
Just the way it happened. Listen, sure. 1/3 of an inning pitched, 4 hits, 6 runs, all of them earned, couple of walks in there, and he gave up a homer. Current spring training ERA 40.5. That is not who Graham Ashcraft is going to be. I'm not worried about it. Look, there's times early in spring that pitchers can't make the baseball do what they want it to do. It's just how it is. That's why spring training's so long. It's so these pitchers can get ready. Graham Ashcraft was trying to do things. He was trying to throw breaking balls that weren't breaking. He was trying to locate that weren't locating. He just had a bad day. And that's going to happen early in the spring. I am not worried about it. I think we know who Graham Ashcraft is, and that's not who he is.
That was something that Tommy, and I give Tommy a lot of credit for things like this, because he does this on a regular basis, and it's really awesome. Like, he just like stopped for a minute. He's just like, all right, Graham Ashcraft's going through something right here, Cowboy. What is this? What are we seeing right here? And Cowboy's just like, his breaking ball isn't breaking. Like, period. Like, he and like they'll be like, oh, and that's inside for ball 2. And Cowboy's like that one right there. He just tried to throw a cutter, and he doesn't have the feel for it. So if you don't have the feel for the pitches, you're going to get clobbered. And if this were a regular season game, he'd have been pulled after the third batter. But this is a spring training game, and so they want him to work through some stuff. They want to see if he can get his grip back, get his control back in the middle of all of this. And so this was a scheduled thing that he carried out. And then right after that, probably my favorite thing that I learned today is that a guy named Jean-Pierre is in the Reds organization, and Jean-Pierre came into the ball game and finished out that inning for that. I love that. He's a 22-year-old kid that I think is in single A, so we won't see him in the major leagues this year. But I hope at some point we get Jean-Pierre in the major leagues on the Cincinnati Reds. That'd be phenomenal.
If you break into song, this sounds like the beginnings of like the Reds the musical, and I no, just absolutely not. Look, this is what I know. There's a lot more baseball to watch out in Goodyear. These guys are going to get themselves right and ready before we get to opening day. And I am definitely looking forward to it. But there are a couple guys who what they do in Goodyear right now matters a little bit because they're fighting for a spot on this roster. I see that you actually went with our prep joke of Beday. It's Beday Watch out in Goodyear. We're going to talk about Will Benson and JJ Bleday coming up next.
Workplace chaos. Deadlines are stacking up. Inboxes are overflowing. And that one position that you have open, well, it's still open and you need to get it filled. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. In the time here that we've been talking, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of the show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status that it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs.
If you can't watch us here on YouTube, you can get us on every single audio podcasting platform there is pretty much. If you find one we're not on, you want us there, let Jeff know. He can probably make it happen for you. Also over in the audio feeds, that's where the Everydayer Club lives. Use the promo code SPRING right now through the end of the month to get a month free of ad-free Locked On Reds. That's also going to get you access to our Discord servers, not only for Locked On Reds, but every Locked On show. So you can talk ball with every single expert of the Locked On network. $5 a month, $50 a year. The link for that is down in the show description. Check it out today. All right, Jeff. Beday Watch is what we're doing. Will Benson, JJ Bleday. You look at what they've done so far. They've had pretty good games entering into today. Will Benson in the lineup yesterday in that 11-10 win, playing designated hitter, 1 for 2. He scored a couple of runs, drew a walk, currently hitting 250 on the spring. JJ Bleday, just quickly scrolling, lots of guys in this game. He did not get in the game yesterday against the Padres, so I look to see him in the next lineup.
Yeah, I'm intrigued a little bit by how to evaluate both these guys early on in spring training because they both have looked good in different scenarios. Both are hitting the ball absolutely scorching hot. I know that JJ Bleday has at least one hit over 110 miles an hour. Like, whoa. And you've got both guys with a lot of hits over 100 miles an hour. The thing for me is that I kind of feel like the Reds are spoiled for choice with either one of these guys right now. Like, I think that both are going to fill the role that we need them to. Benson has more power, Bleday a little bit more on just the average side of things. But there's one key statistic. If anybody's looking at statistics and trying to compare statistics, don't do that. But if you really want to do that, Baseball Reference has this one number that you should look at. Baseball Reference has an opponent quality number where they rate the pitcher specifically, that hitters face by the level of baseball that they have reached, the highest level of baseball that they've reached. And if you're facing, if your opponent quality average score is over 8, that means that your average player that you faced against is at least AAA, or average of AAA. You've got to be around 10 to face major leaguers all the time. Nobody really is, because you're facing a lot of minor leaguers at different points throughout the game. But if you're around 7, that means you're mostly facing AA hitter or AA pitchers. Will Benson's opponent quality right now is average at 8.5. JJ Bleday's is 7.1. So take everything with a little bit of grain of salt. JJ Bleday's not facing as good a pitching, but so far so good with both these dudes.
Is it possible that you, as the president of the Will Benson fan club, just went and found some stats to fit your mission statement, sir? I'm not sure.
All day.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure which guy has the inside track on this. And what I'm also not sure about is there a scenario, is there a lane where they keep them both? I can't find that lane. I'm not sure that they both fit.
Nathaniel Lowe would not be on the roster.
Right. Yeah. So for me, it's very interesting what this is going to come down to. And I wonder if, like, the second half of spring training, do you just start playing them both against a bunch of left-handed pitchers and see which guy can hit the lefties better? And that's the guy that you keep on the roster so that you have a little more flexibility. I'm not sure what to do here. If they keep playing up and up, I don't know that anybody has an inside track. I'm really not sure, Jeff. I'm really not sure what they do here. Maybe one guy will still just run away with it, and then it'll be an easy decision. But right now, are we going to have a coin flip at home plate on the last day of spring training? Like, best out of 3 gets to go to Cincinnati. Like, what are we going to do?
Home run derby at Great American Ballpark. Whoever has the most home runs gets the roster spot. I don't know that either one has separated himself as much as I want to say this or that about one or the other. I don't think that we've hit that point yet, but I think that we have seen good things from both. So it's not as if somebody is losing this job right now, which I think this early on in the spring training is the most important thing for either one of these guys. The interesting part, though, if you want to really start to scrutinize things, is that if I'm looking at their positional versatility, I trust Will Benson in center field a little bit more than I trust JJ Bleday. And the key with both of these guys are that they have options. So whoever doesn't get picked for the opening day roster goes down to Louisville. You don't have to worry about waivers. They are still part of your season. It's just one of these guys won't be part of the season from the get-go. And there's a big reason for that, because as we mentioned, there's 4 bench spots. If you keep both, Nathaniel Lowe's not on the bench because one of these goes to Jose Trevino and the other one goes to Dane Myers, who I am super excited about based on some things that I've seen this spring training from him. He looked really good in the game against San Diego, hit a scorcher off the top of the wall. And I think it ended up being a double because he couldn't quite get to third, but it was a great hit for him. But I think that overall, like, he went first to third, and I'm trying to think of who it was that hit the ball. I think it might have been a hit from TJ Friedel, but it was just a single. It wasn't like a gap double, easy first to third thing. Like, he stretched the base. And so he's got the base running acumen of a lot of the guys on this roster. He's going to fit right in with that. But if he just continues to kind of stay in his lane, mash lefties, and play good defensive center field, he is going to be super valuable for this team because he is making the minimum. He is not a guy that is making over $1 million. He's making $820K this season. I'm really excited to see what Dane Myers can bring to this team because I think that his value is going to far outweigh his cost.
And I just want to recap something you just said, here, Ed, for the folks that have stuck with us here, the everydayers in the third segment. That was a pretty good breakdown of what the Reds bench looks like. Dane Myers has a spot. Jose Trevino has a spot. That just leaves 2 spots. If Bleday and Benson are battling for the 3rd spot and we want Nathaniel Lowe to have the 4th spot, that really is what it comes down to. So there is no lane for both Bleday and Benson. You're absolutely right. I mean, I'm glad you broke it down like that, just to kind of make it crystal clear. They really are battling for that 1 spot.
And I messed that up earlier on in spring training. I said that there were 5 bench spots. Forgot that, well, you have a DH now. You don't have a pitcher hitting. So you don't have 5 bench spots. You have 4. But that is exactly what the bench looks like. And that's why you keep hearing, like Tommy Thrall, I think, has said at some point during every spring training game right now, as we're sitting here 5 games in, that there just isn't as many players in camp as there typically are, because there are so few roster spots that are not spoken for. It's literally that 1 spot on the bench and that 1 spot in the bullpen, and that's it. There's just not anywhere for anybody else to make hay for. So, like, we can talk a little bit about some interesting, breakouts. Like, if Blake Dunn turns out to be something, he hit a ball over 100 miles an hour the other day, which I love to see, and he does have a hit so far, but I just don't see a process, or I don't see a path for him to be on the opening day roster at this point. Or if you're looking at the infield and saying, well, Edwin Arroyo looks interesting, maybe there's something with Michael Toglia. There's nothing.
Probably not.
There's
all of those names you just mentioned are probably replacements for IL stints from somebody on the big league club, especially with those outfielders. And you're going to have Hector Rodriguez. You're going to have Tyler Callahan. You're going to have Blake Dunn. All of those guys just hoping they get an opportunity. And, and it's bad, right? You have to feel bad, because to get your opportunity, somebody has to get hurt. We don't want anybody to get hurt. So it's going to be interesting to watch how all of this plays out. And that is where we're going to go ahead and wrap up this edition of Locked On Reds. Thanks, as always, for making Locked On Reds your first listen each and every day. For the audio folks, go make Locked On MLB your second listen. Couple great shows going on over in that feed. Mike Stanton has got you covered from a player's perspective on Locked On MLB feed. Go check that out. And Sully, of course, has all of baseball covered for you from a national perspective, with a lot of humor, a lot of good stories, a lot of good information along the way. So go check out the Locked On MLB feed. For the video folks, stick around. We're going to redirect you over to Locked On's first ever 24/7 national YouTube channel, where all of the experts of the Locked On network are talking ball for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We'll be back in your feed on Monday, gathering up all the news, the notes, the rumors, and the reports to keep you locked on Reds every single day.
I am just now realizing that it was me that actually had the order all messed up. You should have talked out at the first break.
I know. Guy with no voice steals segue. That's the headline.